Story 6. The Visitor in the Backyard. My name doesn't matter, but I can tell you I live in a place where silence reigns. My house is surrounded by vast fields and a few scattered trees. There are no neighbors nearby, and the closest light beyond mine comes from the stars. It's the kind of place where you learn to live with solitude but also to pay attention to anything out of the ordinary. It was a night like any other. The full moon bathed everything in light, casting long shadows across the yard. I was sitting at the kitchen table going over some notes about the harvest. The clock on the wall showed it was almost midnight, and exhaustion was beginning to take over. That's when I heard it. At first, a faint creak, like the barn door slowly opening. Initially I thought it was the wind, but the air was completely still. Then came another sound, clearer this time. Soft but distinct footsteps on the dirt ground. I frowned, standing up slowly. Grabbing a flashlight, I headed to the back door, trying to see what was happening. The barn was about 30 meters from the house, an old but sturdy structure. I looked toward it and immediately noticed something was off. The door, which I always kept locked, was slightly ajar. A wave of unease crept over me. It could have been an animal that managed to push the door open. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the case. "Who's there?" I called out, hoping for a response. But all I got in return was silence. Against my better judgment, I decided to investigate. Adjusting the flashlight in one hand and gripping the bat I used to chase off wild animals in the other, I took a deep breath and walked toward the barn, unaware that my life was about to change forever. My breathing grew heavier as I slowly approached the barn. Each step made the silence feel even more oppressive. When I reached the slightly open door, I carefully grasped it, trying to avoid making any noise. The flashlight trembled slightly in my hand. I peeked inside, expecting to find a raccoon or some other animal that had wandered in. But what I saw wasn't an animal. The flashlight's beam landed on a figure crouched in the middle of the barn. It was tall, thin, with a body that defied logic. Its arms were disproportionate, unnaturally long, and its skin had a grayish tone that seemed to emit a faint glow in the darkness. The creature was fiddling with the ground, as if collecting something with swift, deliberate movements. It took my mind a moment to comprehend what I was seeing. It wasn't human, of that I was certain. I tried to take a step back, but my foot landed on a loose piece of wood, which cracked loudly under my weight. The creature froze instantly and turned its head toward me. My heart raced as those enormous, pitch-black eyes locked onto mine. There was no emotion in them, just an emptiness that seemed to pull me in. I wanted to run, but my body wouldn't respond. It felt as though something invisible was holding my muscles in place, forcing me to remain frozen. Suddenly, an intense light appeared above the barn. It was so bright that it seemed to pass through the walls, illuminating everything around me. I closed my eyes instinctively, but the light was so penetrating that it felt as though it was reaching directly into my mind. A wave of heat coursed through my body, followed by a high-pitched sound that seemed to come from inside my head. It was unbearable. When I finally managed to open my eyes, the light was gone, along with the creature. The barn was empty, but the ground where it had been now bore scorched marks, small, perfect circles. My thoughts were scattered and my head throbbed. I had no idea how much time had passed. All I knew was that something incomprehensible had just occurred. Something I would never be able to explain. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a heavy body as if I'd run for miles. I was still in the kitchen, sitting at the table. I didn't remember how I'd gotten back to the house, let alone fallen asleep. I looked at the clock. It was already past 9 a.m., far later than I usually started my day. I stood up, still groggy, and went straight to the barn, hoping to find some trace of what had happened. From the outside, everything looked normal. The door, which had been open the night before, was now shut and locked, as if nothing had happened. My heart began to race as I got closer. When I opened the door, I saw that the inside of the barn was pristine. The tools were in place, the bales of hay stacked as usual. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, except for the ground. Right in the center of the barn, where I'd seen the creature, there were perfect circular scorch marks burned into the dirt. 4 small circles arranged in a symmetrical pattern. The surrounding soil was untouched, as if those marks had been made with impossible precision. I knelt to examine them more closely. The edges of the marks were smooth, with no signs that anything physical had pressed into the ground. They weren't footprints, tire tracks, or anything I could recognize. When I touched the surface with my fingers, I felt a faint vibration, as though the earth was still alive, charged with energy. I spent the entire day trying to come up with explanations. I thought of everything: vandals, a natural phenomenon, even hallucinations. But none of it made sense. The marks were real, tangible, right there in front of me. I told a few people I knew, but no one believed me. They said I was exaggerating, that it must have been an animal or something ordinary. But I know what I saw. I know that thing wasn't from this world. Since that night, I've started having nightmares. I see the creature's black eyes in my dreams, always watching me, unmoving. Sometimes I wake up feeling as though someone is in the room with me, silently watching in the dark. The marks on the barn floor have never disappeared, even after heavy rains and storms. They remain, a constant reminder that something visited me that night. Something not of this world. And deep down, I know it's not over. I feel that one day they will return. The only question left is, why?